Hello, welcome to my channel. Please check if you are subscribed. If not, please be kind enough to subscribe to the channel if you want to support me. Thank you. Caroline Crouch, like many teenage girls, dreamed of falling in love, gaining freedom from her parents, and getting married. Her journey began when she fell for Babish Anagnostopoulos, a 27-year-old helicopter pilot who flew over her school and instantly won her heart. At just 15, Caroline entered into a relationship with him. By the time she turned 18, they had escaped to Portugal and tied the knot, seemingly living out a romantic dream. Yet beneath the surface of this idealized love story was a grim reality. At 4:30 a.m. on May 11, 2021, Babish claimed he awoke to an assault on their home. He was living with his wife and infant daughter in a 2-story stone house in Glyconera, a suburb on the outskirts of Athens, Greece. Still half asleep, Babish was attacked by 3 hooded men who stormed in and beat him before he could defend himself. The intruders entered armed and swiftly restrained the homeowner, covering his eyes and mouth with duct tape so he couldn't intervene as they turned their attention to his 19-year-old wife, Caroline. Their 11-month-old daughter was asleep nearby in her crib during the entire ordeal. The attackers, speaking with Greek and Albanian accents, repeatedly demanded money from Caroline, but she didn't have any answers. What started as a robbery ended in tragedy when Babish's young wife lost her life. Caroline Crouch was born in Athens on July 12, 2001. Her father, David Crouch, is a retired engineer, and her mother, Susan Della Cuesta, works as a teacher. When Caroline was just 8, the family moved to the Greek island of Alenissos in the Aegean Sea. She grew up there and completed her schooling. Her parents enjoyed life by the sea, and Caroline developed a deep love for the beach and a strong passion for scuba diving. Caroline first met Babish, the man she would eventually marry, during a Friday parade in February 2017. At the time, she was just a typical schoolgirl, while Babish worked as a professional helicopter pilot. 3 years later, the two got married. Shortly before the robbery, Babish and Caroline purchased a plot of land where they dreamed of building a home for themselves and their daughter. Caroline's parents wanted to support her, gifting her €50,000, which she used to buy the land. The couple had also saved €10,000 to cover construction expenses. Each of them had hidden their share somewhere inside the house. At that time, many Greeks avoided putting their money in banks, fearing financial instability and potential collapses. It was common for people to store cash at home, believing it to be more secure. Caroline and Babish likely shared this belief, which is why they kept their entire savings in the house. They never expected their home to be broken into. But when Caroline began screaming on May 11, 2021, Babish panicked and revealed the location of their hidden cash. The intruders found all the money the couple had saved for building their future home and stuffed it into a box that originally held a Monopoly board game. Still unsatisfied, the thieves continued ransacking the house, taking jewelry and anything else of value they could find. Babish and Caroline handed over everything they owned, desperately pleading for mercy and for their baby daughter to be unharmed. The couple was terrified. Babish could hear his wife screaming as someone pointed a gun at their 11-month-old child. Though his eyes were taped shut, he could feel Caroline's terror for their daughter's safety. The rope around his neck was so tight that he drifted in and out of consciousness, slipping into darkness despite being blindfolded. Babish eventually lost consciousness completely. When he came to, the house was eerily silent, and he realized the intruders had left. The sound of his baby daughter crying was the only thing that pulled him back from the darkness. He was disoriented and had no idea what had just happened. He didn't know where his wife was, or whether their baby was injured. Deep down, he sensed that he had been unconscious for around 30 minutes. Struggling, Babish managed to reach his cell phone and used his nose to dial emergency services. When the dispatcher answered, he tried to explain the situation, but with his mouth still taped shut, his voice was muffled, making it difficult for the operator to understand him right away. An hour and a half passed after the burglars entered the couple's home before police and firefighters finally arrived. Around 6 a.m., they rushed down the stairs and into the house and were met with a shocking scene. The living room, kitchen, and bathroom were in complete disarray. Drawers had been pulled out and emptied onto the floor, with clothes and belongings scattered everywhere. Amid the chaos sat an open Monopoly game box, the same one where Babish and Caroline had hidden their money. The rescue team immediately noticed a security camera lying on the couch. It appeared to have been removed from the wall and tossed aside. The memory card was missing. It wasn't just another item tossed around the house. What the officers saw next left them stunned. A white and brown husky puppy was hanging from the staircase by its own leash. No one could understand why the intruders felt the need to kill the young dog. It was still just a puppy. Babish was found lying on the master bedroom floor. His eyes and mouth were sealed with duct tape up to his neck, and his hands and feet were tied tightly behind his back with rope. Caroline was on the bed, motionless, with their baby daughter beside her. The child, unaware of what had happened, was crying and clapping her hands in an attempt to wake her mother. Although the baby was physically unharmed, the circumstances she was found in were far from safe. Caroline Crouch was pronounced dead. Her pale, lifeless face led medical personnel to suspect she had died violently. Police removed the ropes from the home and peeled off the tape. Babish let out a scream when he saw Caroline's lifeless body. He had been in love with her for 5 years, and her death left him devastated and in disbelief. Once the baby was confirmed to be safe, officers began questioning Babish. According to his statement, 4 men had been involved in the break-in. 3 entered the house, while a 4th remained outside to stand guard. The incident began when one of the intruders approached the house via a dirt path leading to the back door. He removed the pins from a basement window and climbed inside after failing to force it open. Once inside, he killed Roxy, the couple's 7-month-old dog, by hanging her with her leash from the stairs, likely fearing she would bark and alert others to their presence. He then unlocked the door from within to let in his 2 accomplices. Together, the 3 men went to the master bedroom, where they found Caroline, Babish, and their baby daughter. After learning where the cash was hidden, they retrieved it from the Monopoly box and searched the house for more valuables. Before leaving, they returned to the bedroom and placed a pillow over Caroline. At that time, Babish had passed out from the rope tightly wrapped around his neck. The intruders may have assumed he was dead and fled the scene, believing there were no witnesses left behind. However, it was later revealed that Caroline didn't die immediately. The attack on the 19-year-old lasted around 6 minutes. The bruises and sores covering her body, along with cuts on her arms and legs, made this clear. Injuries around her lips and mouth indicated she may have been struck with a sharp object. Despite these signs, there were no indications of sexual assault. Although they caused extensive damage throughout the home, they left behind almost no physical evidence. The only item found was a single hood belonging to one of the attackers. According to Babish's account, the hood likely fell off during a struggle. This small clue gave investigators a faint lead. Babish described the man as tall, dark-skinned, and overweight. Experts created a rough sketch based on witness descriptions. Though Babish was shaken, he managed to recall the 2 firearms the intruders used during the robbery. He claimed they were armed with a silver Colt and a black handgun. The investigation revealed that the criminals stole €10,000 in cash and approximately €20,000 worth of jewelry. Authorities concluded that this was the work of professionals. This wasn't a random break-in. They had clearly been watching the family and waited for the perfect moment to strike. Police described the assault on Caroline as an act of extreme brutality, possibly committed by someone with antisocial tendencies and a complete lack of empathy. The case immediately raised serious questions. If the thieves got what they came for, why did they kill the young woman? What could have driven them to such an extreme act? Were they possibly under the influence of drugs that made them lose control? They managed to escape, leaving behind almost no evidence. Or perhaps Caroline recognized them and could identify their faces. Caroline had trained in karate for some time. Given her physical fitness, it's likely she resisted with everything she had. Still, it would have been nearly impossible for a young woman to overpower 3 adult men. The intruders may have felt the need to silence her to keep the situation under control. When one of them pointed a gun at her baby daughter, Caroline screamed. Any mother would have done the same to protect her child. The thieves may have killed Caroline simply because she refused to cooperate. Investigators explored many theories, but most were just speculation. However, one thing was clear to the police. The attack had been premeditated. The intruders knew exactly where the cash was hidden inside the house. This led authorities to suspect that someone close to the couple might have tipped off the gang. Investigators began working to uncover who that could be. They also reviewed surveillance footage from nearby homes and businesses. The videos revealed a dark-colored car and later a motorbike circling the couple's house early that morning. However, tracing where those vehicles went afterward proved difficult. Caroline was laid to rest 3 days after her death on the Greek island of Alenissos, the place where she had spent her childhood and teenage years. During the funeral, Babish spoke about how fortunate he felt to have loved and been loved by her. For years, he had found happiness simply by being with the woman he adored. Now heartbroken, Babish took solace in the fact that their daughter, a part of Caroline, was still with him. As mourners said their final goodbyes, a routine document check was taking place in northeastern Greece. A car heading toward the Bulgarian border was stopped, and inside was a 43-year-old Georgian man. Police immediately noticed that his passport was fake. He was soon identified as Georgi Karadeshvili, a dangerous criminal with a long history of prior convictions. He was wanted for committing 12 home burglaries in Athens over the past 6 months. But what caught the police's attention even more was that several of those crimes occurred near where Babish and Caroline lived. One of them happened in December, when Karadeshvili and 3 accomplices broke into a home through a back window. They assaulted a woman and threatened her with a knife before stealing €10,000 worth of jewelry and cash. Another incident took place on March 7th, just 2 months before the attack on Babish and Caroline. The similarities between these cases were striking. To top it off, the suspect sketch, based on Babish's description, strongly resembled Karadashvili. Given his record of violent break-ins, his attempt to flee the country, and the physical match to the sketch, police were confident they had found their suspect. Karadashvili was arrested and taken to prison. During his detention, he was physically and mentally mistreated, actions that violated his rights. Despite being struck in the head, he maintained his innocence and insisted he had never even heard of Caroline Crouch. With no solid evidence linking him to the crime, the police were forced to release him. However, the fallout was significant. 3 officers were dismissed, and several others were demoted as a result. As the investigation continued, police shifted their focus to an Albanian organized crime group operating in the area. Initially, they had a list of 100 potential suspects, which was eventually narrowed down to 10. Babish was shown photos of all 10, but he couldn't identify any of them as the attackers. The case dragged on. Authorities offered a €300,000 reward for information leading to the criminal's arrest, but no useful leads came in. With the culprit still at large, fear spread across Athens. Residents were left wondering who might be targeted next. According to news reports, Caroline's murder was the first known case in Greece where the attackers left behind no DNA, fingerprints, or any other physical evidence. Despite the lack of results, both the Crouch family and Babish Anagnostopoulos expressed gratitude for the police's efforts to solve the case. Caroline's husband publicly supported the investigation and regularly spoke to the media to keep her story alive. He was also active on social media, responding to questions and thanking people for their support. Then, on June 17th, 37 days after Caroline's brutal death, a major development occurred on the island of Alanissos. Family and friends gathered for a small memorial service. Nearby, a police helicopter waited on an empty field beside the cemetery, and attendees noticed plainclothes officers among the crowd. After the ceremony, investigators discreetly approached Babish and asked him to accompany them to Athens, claiming that new information had emerged in the case. He was told that his help was needed to identify a suspect. The grieving widower agreed, unaware of what was about to unfold. By then, detectives had carefully reviewed numerous theories and critical details from the night of Caroline's death. Certain details just didn't add up. Babish told police the intruders entered through a small basement window, but considering one of the suspects was described as a large man, it was clear the window was far too small to be a realistic entry point. He also claimed the thieves had ransacked the house, yet neighbors reported hearing nothing unusual that night. There were no loud noises, no barking from the dog, no shouts for help, and no crying from the baby. Investigators discovered that the memory card from the security camera had been removed, but digital records showed it was taken out at 1:20 a.m., several hours before the supposed break-in. Caroline's smartwatch provided further insight. At 3:58 a.m., her vitals indicated she was likely asleep, but by 4:05 a.m., her heart rate spiked by 50%, suggesting she was suddenly under intense physical and emotional stress. Caroline's heart stopped at 4:11 a.m. before Babish claimed the break-in occurred. Data from a fitness app on his phone revealed that he had been moving around during the time he said he was tied up. Investigators even attempted to replicate how someone could call emergency services while restrained and masked, but none of their tests were successful. It also came to light that Caroline had tried to book a hotel room for herself and her daughter that very night. A text message she sent to a friend confirmed her intention to leave her husband. In the early years of their marriage, Caroline attended college in Athens while Babish continued working as a pilot. On social media, both portrayed a picture-perfect life, filled with love and joy, but entries from Caroline's personal diary told a very different story, one filled with tension, conflict, and unhappiness. In her journal, Caroline often questioned why she was still with Babish. In February 2019, she described a serious argument and mentioned wanting to leave him and stay with her sister. Over time, her husband became increasingly manipulative and controlling. He grew fixated on isolating her from others, but Caroline, like many 19-year-olds, wasn't ready for the role of motherhood. She didn't have a job because she was still in college, and Babish would immediately take control of any money to limit her independence. Occasionally, her mother would send her some funds. Despite the pain the relationship caused her, Caroline wrote that she couldn't bring herself to leave because she still loved him deeply. Even after becoming pregnant, she continued trying to end the marriage, but in the end, she stayed. Caroline wanted her child to grow up in a complete family, but her diary made it clear to investigators that she had been planning to leave her husband. What began as a fairy tale romance had spiraled into a dark and inescapable reality for Caroline. Eventually, detectives confronted Babish and told him they believed he had murdered his wife. After 8 hours of interrogation, he finally broke down and confessed. According to Babish, The fatal argument started when Caroline said she wanted to take their daughter and leave. He claimed she became physically aggressive first, striking him and tossing the baby into the crib. Babish said he lost control in that moment. He described sitting beside Caroline on the bed, pressing a pillow over her face and holding it there with all his weight. He murdered the mother of his child in front of their 11-month-old daughter. At first, Babish considered disposing of Caroline's body, but soon realized he couldn't go through with it. Instead, he devised a plan to stage a home invasion. To make it look convincing, he even killed Roxy, their 7-month-old dog, knowing no one would believe he could harm his own pet. Babish then placed his baby daughter beside Caroline's lifeless body. He wrapped duct tape around himself, tied up his own hands and feet with rope, and called the police. He was so confident in his plan that he didn't even attempt to destroy crucial evidence. In May 2022, Babish was officially charged with murder committed in a fit of rage, obstruction of justice, filing a false report, and animal cruelty. He was sentenced to life in prison, plus an additional 10 years for killing the dog, along with a $20,000 fine. Babish and Caroline's daughter was placed in the care of the Crouch family. It's a heartbreaking reality. She will grow up without the person who loved her most. But justice has a way of catching up with those who try to escape it. No matter how carefully they plan, overconfidence only brings them closer to the day they must face the consequences of their actions. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss future episodes. Come back for a new episode. See you soon.